Welcome back. Another edition, Query and Schultz here on ISC Sports Network. Jake Query, Derek Schultz. What are you? You're just sitting there stoically.
Hi.
You look hypnotized.
I'm not hypnotized. I'm just happy to be here.
Okay, fair enough.
I mean, the stuff about your heart and all that, like we're past that now. So we're alive.
I was
and well
past
and
that, Derek, the next day. You
thriving.
you keep talking about it.
70 degrees in November.
It's unbelievable.
And this is I'm wearing shorts right now. My legs look amazing, by the way. I know you guys can't see it on the camera. But
sure. Yeah, that's
you see these calves?
Sure. Yeah, we don't.
I
need to see that.
really started focusing on my calves recently.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
They look good, don't
Doing
they?
a lot of lifts, are you?
You jealous?
Not at all.
Look real good.
Not at all. I am jealous, though, that you can be in the gym because I get cleared this week, back full throttle. I did some walking, but, I want to get back on it. I want to get miles in. Anyway, welcome to another edition of Query and Schultz, brought to you by WGU Indiana. You know, WGU, which is Indiana's not only very top accredited and affordable online learning, but also celebrating 10 years now as WGU Indiana and offers $10,000 in scholarships as a result of that to celebrate 10 years. Remember, ambition never rests, and we'll talk more about that opportunity for you to get that $10,000 towards your education, your continuing education. But, Derek, this show never rests either, and the Colts, look, you knew the Ravens coming in, this was kind of the benchmark test for them. I didn't think total disastrous performance, but yet there were just opportunities that got away, and this run game for Indianapolis continues to be MIA.
Yeah, what was frustrating about Sunday's game was I think the Colts really had a chance to build a lead and maybe even land the knockout blow in the first half.
Right.
They were so good in the first half, and defensively it was the best half that they've played all season, yet they walked into the halftime locker room with a 3-point lead, and you felt like, man, this should be double digits. This should be, at the very least, a 14, 17-point lead, and then at that point, maybe the Ravens have to change their game plan, and they're playing catch-up, and the defense can really pin its ears back. So I really felt like this game was lost with the Colts' inability to take advantage and build a lead on what was really a dominant first half performance.
You know, you made an interesting point on social media in talking about the Colts run game and the fact that, sure, they don't have Marlon Mack, okay, so you get a bit of a pass there. But, you made a good point of that might be the case, but a year ago, they went out and it wasn't like they had household receivers, but they still were able to, behind a great line a year ago, establish some run, and you anticipated that this year that run would be there and that threat would be there for Phillip Rivers. Their average yards per carry was not terrible against Baltimore, but they just can't get an established run game going to keep defenses honest, and it really makes it easy to kind of pinpoint what Indianapolis is going to try to do.
Yeah, I think people have been I don't know about you, Jake. Are you surprised with who Phillip Rivers has been through 8 games? I'm not.
No, I think it's about what you anticipated, right?
I think overall this is who the Colts knew they were getting with Phillip Rivers. So the problem with this offense is, first off, Rivers is old and limited and just he can't beat teams by himself anymore. He just can't. He certainly can't beat elite defenses by himself, and you saw that yesterday. I mean, it was a rough go of it yesterday for Phillip Rivers. But the reason that I talked myself into
over the weekend,
throwing $25 million into Rivers' lap was because I expected the 2019 running game to still be there. So I thought, okay, well, if this offense can be run first and have a little balance, but have that threat of downfield passing, where those numbers have actually improved from Jacoby Brissett in 2019 to now 2020.
You needed a passing game
that could get by.
You needed a passing game that was complementing their run game, as opposed to a run game now that's going to have to complement their passing game because that's the only thing they got going.
100%. Right? And I think that's where they're really lacking. Look, you can have the best defense in the world. If you're going to score 10 points, you ain't beating nobody. You're certainly not beating Baltimore scoring 10 points. In today's NFL, the name of the game is offense. You got to score. And, the Colts can get by against the Bears scoring 19 points, but you're not going to beat a team like Baltimore or Kansas City or anybody like that doing that. So they really have to get this offense figured out because the defense has been even better than advertised. Special teams is still solid and reliable. Really, outside of last week, it's been spectacular for most parts of this season. It's the offense that's really holding this team back.
I was thinking about this. When the Ravens now have been – when did the Browns move to Baltimore? 96?
After the 95 season, I think.
Yeah, so 96,
maybe after
right?
the 94
so
season.
A quarter century now, right? They really did kind of hit a home run in coming up with the name Ravens, didn't they?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the color scheme, but
Really?
if you're going to pay homage
No, hold
to
on. What about the color scheme
somebody
do you not
really
like?
cool. I'm not a purple guy. I'm not a pro sports.
I can't disagree with
person.
that. I mean, the black helmets are cool.
Yeah.
They really have searched for different helmets over the years, right? But the helmets are pretty cool.
The black helmets are cool. The logo's pretty cool.
It is.
With the B on the Raven. But is it a B or an R? That's a B, right?
You mean the Raven
on the little
head.
Raven head.
I think it's a B.
It's a B. Yeah, B for Baltimore.
I
agree with you. I like the combo. And a lot of times, Jake, when you let fans choose anything, it's a disaster. So the fact that they did this and they chose Ravens, I thought was pretty cool.
Do you know the name of their mascots? They got 3 of them.
Birds. Edgar, Allen, and Poe.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Not as cool as Jackson DeVille.
Jackson DeVille's the creme de la creme.
Jackson DeVille is the gold standard of mascot names, for sure.
Toro's cool. He's the Texans.
Yeah, that's not bad.
It's a good division although the Ravens are not in the division, but in terms of mascots. Yeah. But look, I still don't think, now speaking of the division, the Colts find themselves now a game back of Tennessee with the big-time matchup coming up, obviously, with Tennessee still on the schedule. But I don't think you necessarily push the panic button because, as we know, look, the cream of the crop in the AFC, Pittsburgh, clearly, Kansas City, Baltimore, the Colts aren't that far away from them. Now, are they going to be able to go in January, December, and get wins against those teams? I don't know about that. But I don't know that you necessarily completely push the panic button because you have within sight what it is that they need to take care of.
Yeah, I'm not panicking because I looked at this 4-game stretch as a grouping. So I don't really care where the wins come. I would love for them to be against Tennessee. But I'm thinking if the Colts can go 2-2, then they're going to be in okay shape for a stretch run, final quarter, playoff run, whether that be the division or the wild card. So Sunday's loss doesn't nuke that to hell or anything. You know what I mean? I think it's survivable to lose to Baltimore. That said, Jake, I thought going in that this was a 9-ish win team, and we're halfway through the season, and you know what this looks like? A 9-ish win team.
You're right.
That's just what they look like. Can anything happen in a one-game scenario?
I think
sure it can, but
Derek,
I think they're a 9-7-ish team.
I think of 9-ish win teams, 9-7, 8-8. I think of those teams as being teams that just kind of luck their way through a few wins and are right there as a 500 level. I think the Colts are a little bit better than that. I think of them more in that, wild card, right in the thick of it all year long team. A 9-win team, I think of one of those as being on the outside of the playoff picture clearly for the entire season.
Yeah, but
the Colts, I think, are right in the playoff picture the entire season.
This way. They would have to finish 6-2 to finish with 11 wins. This team's not finishing 6-2, right? So like 9-ish can also mean 10. 10's pretty close to 9, so it's 9-ish. It's not 9-7.
But doesn't it feel
hard
like
and fast?
Doesn't it feel like in the
nine-ish
NFL
wins.
there's a huge difference between a 9-7 team and like a 10 or 11?
Yeah,
I mean?
I think you're especially in the AFC. I still think Kansas City is. I know Pittsburgh's undefeated. Kansas City is the class of the AFC. That's the team to beat. And but Pittsburgh is right there. I think Tennessee's come back to the pack. But you know what? Some of these other teams, the Raiders. Look at what the Dolphins have done.
Yeah,
I was really kind of impressed with their win against Arizona. So
that's
going
a
to be
decent win. I mean, Arizona's a decent team.
Yeah, it's going to be a little bit tougher than I think we thought about the Colts contending for a playoff spot. But no, losing to Baltimore doesn't mean that suddenly the season is crumbling and you need to throw in Jacob Eason and all that.
By the way, I know some of you folks, I can hear it. I can hear you saying right now, you're enjoying the NFL talk, the Colts talk. Obviously, we'll talk college football over the course of this episode of Corey and Schultz. But you're also thinking to yourselves, I wonder where those guys got those shirts. And just so you know, this fabulous Market Square Arena shirt, which is where I saw my first concert, 1983, Lionel Richie with Tina Turner. I graduated from North Central High School in Market Square Arena. I saw plenty of Pacer games in the Brown Curtain days. Love everything about MSA. The shop, Broad Ripple Avenue, 920 Broad Ripple Avenue, is where you can get not only this shirt, but a number of different shirts of Indianapolis nostalgia and different sports teams as well. So the T-shirt brought to you by the Shop Indy, Clay Terrace, 920 Broad Ripple Avenue, or theshopindy.com. And in Derek's case, brought to you by Garanimals, available at your local Sears and Roebuck.
Okay, well, this is not a shop shirt.
Yeah,
but
it's Garanimals, right?
It's Gap. It's on the clearance rack. The good news is that I've noticed for a lot of the men's clothing, the waistlines that are 30 and below and the shirts that are small usually always appear on the clearance rack. So I almost exclusively shop there. But I'm as far as
by Gap
clearance is concerned.
By Gap, he means it's actually Granimals Adult Products. That's what that is, right? No,
that's not what that. I don't know what Gap stands for actually. Great American Product.
Fall into the Gap.
Maybe. But I also have.
you
I
too
wore the
young to remember
Hoosier
that?
Dome shirt yesterday
Fall into
from the Shack.
the
I
gap.
remember that. I'm more actually intrigued by Lionel Richie being your first concert.
Oh, yeah, I
'cause
love Lionel
I forget sometimes how old you are.
Tina Turner opened for him.
Yeah, again, I forget sometimes how old you are.
It was a wonderful concert. 1983. My sister and Rick Deitch took me.
My first concert was a far smaller venue than that, but
Where?
Toad's Place, New Haven, Connecticut. Toad's Place. It was a jam band called Deep Banana Blackout.
That was your first concert.
And
How old were you?
They jam. Well, my parents are huge concert people. I hate loud. And I don't really know what you do at concerts. Like, you stand there and do you like sway and sing along, or do you dance? Like, I've always felt really awkward at concerts. So my parents are huge concert people. And
What did you do at the Deep Banana Blackout concert?
Oh, I jam at Deep Banana. DBB, I jam. And
Okay.
Fish, and I saw Phil Lesh and Friends one time, which was awesome. But some of these other concerts, I'm like, what do you really do?
What's the worst concert you've ever been to?
My then girlfriend, when one of the summers we were home from IU, I dated, I came out to Indiana for blonde-haired cornfield girls, and I dated a brunette from Jersey and married a brunette from Vermont. So I guess you stick to your own kind. But anyway, my ex-girlfriend, who was from Jersey, when we went back home one of the summers at IU, Camden, New Jersey, very scenic. You can see the Philly skyline, which was cool.
Sure, yeah.
She dragged me to a
That's
dashboard
DeJuan Wagner's hometown.
confessional show. You ever heard? It's like really whiny, my girlfriend just broke up with me and I'm into my feelings type music.
Okay.
And that does not make a good concert. But I think John Mayer might have opened, and that was pretty okay. But John Mayer was kind of in his poppy phase, like, the first... I want to run through the house, like that stuff. Like, I didn't really like that. I like the adult John Mayer now.
Okay.
Fairfield, Connecticut, by the way. John Mayer.
1987 Genesis Invisible Touch at the Hoosier Dome, you mentioned.
Yeah. Wanna be your sledgehammer?
No, that's Peter Gabriel. That was Peter Gabriel's solo once he broke away from Genesis. Phil Collins became the lead singer of Invisible Touch, huge tour. 87, I mentioned it before, they played at the Hoosier Dome, and after like an hour and 10 minutes, the lights came on, and everybody's like, oh, it's intermission. And then they came on and said, sorry, kids, Phil's sick.
Wow.
And that was it.
Do they refund you another half a concert?
No, they should. Yeah. They should. But that was it. They slammed the, bang the anvil, and headed on.
I don't want to be doom and gloom, but are we going to have to, not have concerts anymore?
Vaccine's coming, Derek.
Yeah, I hope.
You know about that. That's the latest news. 90% from Pfizer.
I'm a big stick to sports person on this show, but people probably would rather hear about our concert history than hear about the Colts 2-touchdown loss to Baltimore.
That's probably
right?
true. Yeah, that's probably true.
People don't usually like talking about
the
Colts
fun part
losses.
about concerts at Market Square Arena was when the lights would come on afterwards and you could see this huge cloud just hanging over the very top. I mean, it was, those were the days, man. And the real narrow tunnels at MSA, and you had to go down that stairwell.
Never got to go to MSA. I was in the Dome a lot, but never. MSA was blown up 2 weeks before I came out to Indiana.
Well, think about this, Derek, and then we'll get back to doing the show. We have a lot to talk about on this episode, but it is crazy to think in the world that we live in today, in the post 9/11 era, that you had an entertainment venue of both concerts and sporting events that took place in it, where you could drive underneath it on Market Street.
Yeah.
There's no way. Can you imagine today?
No, Homeland Security never go for that. Yeah.
No chance that was going to happen. What do we have to get to today?
Oh, we got a ton of stuff to get to. Still more Colts thoughts. I want to talk about that interception overturn.
Weird.
Which drew a lot of reaction on Twitter. Also, a huge college football weekend. Indiana is now a top 10 football team.
Are they?
Well, we'll talk about that. They beat Michigan for the first time since 1987. And then Notre Dame Clemson, which I actually thought was going to be a little bit of a downer without Trevor Lawrence. Regardless of who Clemson was missing, really was an instant classic type of game. A lot of drama. We'll talk about that as well when we come back. Plenty to get to. It's Query and Schultz, episode 10 here on ISC Sports Network. Stick with us.
Dairy farmers provide us with safe, pure foods for our tables. A responsibility that takes intuition, resolve, and determination to make sure their milk is good for you and delicious to taste. Their connection with our community runs deep, passed down through the generations, ensuring that milk is always available at your store. It's not easy being a dairy farmer, but the rewards have special meaning when you can feed Indiana's families every single day. Learn more at winnersdrinkmilk.com.
We're a different breed, aren't we? While others rest, we choose to work. Where others are content, we stay hungry. They may not see us coming, but we know exactly where we're going. You won't rest until you succeed. Neither will we.
I'm Ryan Newman, and since I started with Indiana Donor Network and Driven to Save Lives, I found out that some people think that they can't be an organ donor. The truth is, anyone can sign up to be an organ donor.
Anyone?
Anyone?
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm sure. Anyone can sign up to be an organ donor. So don't count yourself out because somebody's counting on you. Go to driventosavelives.org and sign up today.
Back, Query Schultz, ISU Sports Network, alongside Jay Query. I am the handsome Derek Schultz. Thanks so much for joining us. This portion of the show brought to you by our friends at St. Elmo and St. Elmo Straight Bourbon Whiskey.
Fabulous.
Cherry notes, dark cherry, bourbon, vanilla beans. It is delicious. And even though it's like 75 degrees right now, this is it's great for all seasons, but this is going to make an excellent holiday season cocktail.
Available where, Derek?
Everywhere.
Aside from St. Elmo,
Kroger's,
which is an institution in Indianapolis, been around since 1902, and of course Harry and Izzy's as well is where you can always get the famous Elmo Cola. But now, as Derek had mentioned, you can go ahead and get your own bottle and make yourself your own. Just simply add a little cola to it, fill the glass with ice, in the St. Elmo Steakhouse right here. Fabulous.
Myers,
whiskey.
Targets, Kroger's, find it anywhere.
Our buddy Henry found it at Kroger.
And support all of their restaurants as well. I mean, they it's tough for the restaurant business
Absolutely.
in general, but Hughes Culinary Brands has been a great partner of ours for many, many years.
Well, I'll tell you what, St. Elmo Steakhouse in general and Harry and Izzy's are great partners to the city. I mean, in terms of giving back and just being great partners in the city.
I'm more selfish, though. Are you great partners with us? You know what I mean? That's what I really, at the end of the day, that's what I care about the most.
Okay,
I love Indianapolis, too, but I love this show and our brand.
What did happen in general in football this weekend, Derek? It's becoming like an epidemic of watching games and reviews and taking a look at plays again. I mean, and half the time it takes forever to review plays, and then the call that's made, you're like, wait a minute, that's completely contrary to what the video shows.
Let's table that discussion for Notre Dame Clemson, because I think that was the biggest culprit.
It was absurd.
My God. Review, timeout, commercial, review. The interception yesterday, I think the problem that we have with replay is that it's going against the original spirit of replay. The original spirit of replay was to correct egregious errors, not to put everything under a microscope and look at it frame by frame and be like, I think this might have happened, and according to this table 19.1 of the NFL rulebook, section C, this means that. That's not what replay is supposed to be. And the problem that I had with that interception yesterday, first off, if that's a wide receiver, there is a 0% chance that is a catch and a fumble. Zero.
Correct.
There's no way offensively, if you did that as a receiver, would that be counted as a catch. But secondly, the call on the field was that it was incomplete.
So you need insurmountable evidence.
Clear and obvious means clear and obvious. And I think way too often officials, it does not reach that threshold. And it really bothers me. And it's subjective, and so there's going to naturally be a lot of inconsistency because different eyes are going to see different things. But I think it needs to get back to I'm still pro replay, even though that's eroding, because I think you need to have that as a parachute to correct egregious mistakes, but just correct egregious mistakes. We don't need to review everything.
It does get a little bit. I mean, I understand that coaches want to have it, but, I was watching, I think it was the Dallas-Pittsburgh game. And, I mean, simple out patterns and, we got to review it to make sure that his foot – and you look at it and you're thinking, yeah, it's obvious. I mean, you can see a half a foot between the guy's foot and out of bounds and, is he down? And let's take more time. And – Look, Derek, in the world where television sports viewing in general, there are a million things going on, and people got out of the habit of watching live sports, and you don't have live crowds there. And so, 4.5 hours to watch a game,
It's a lot to deal with.
It is.
If you're asking me, okay, well, you're pro replay, so what do you want to do to change it? The first change that I would implement is no more automatic reviews. Automatic reviews for scoring play. No, you have to have challenge. Plays have to be challenged. If you want to give more challenges, fine. Give more challenges. Give 1 or 2 more challenges, whatever. Automatic replays and everything under 2 minutes, it's got to go.
The problem with the automatic replay, we saw this in the Indiana-Penn State game in college. The problem with the rule of in college football of all scoring plays are reviewed is the official, if there's anything that's even remotely close, is going to say, you know what, I'm just going to call this a scoring play because that way it gives me the pass of getting the review. Well, then it has to be insurmountable. So you have guys erring on the side of aggression for scoring plays, and teams are getting scoring plays that shouldn't be scoring plays, and then you have a bad camera angle.
But that's I'm glad that you brought up the Penix play at the end of Indiana-Penn State, because that's a great example of exactly what I'm talking about that. And I'm not just saying that because they ruled in Indiana's favor. I think the ball of the football may have crossed the plane. I have no idea, but it certainly wasn't clear and obvious that it didn't. So the call stood.
Well, that's
what I want replay to be.
But they called it on the field because they knew, hey, if we call this a scoring play,
I get your point.
I've got to buy myself a review here because, man, this is too close. Okay, I'm going to count it.
I get your point. But just that's what I mean.
I'm happy that Indiana won that game, Derek. I did not think it was a 2-point conversion. I didn't think he got it.
I did. He definitely didn't hit the pylon first. The ball hit the ground before the pylon, but I thought the nose of the football broke the plane before it hit the ground.
Now, what game was I watching? I can't remember what I was watching this weekend, and it showed, and there was a review of whether or not a guy got the ball over the end zone, okay? Now.
NFL game?
I can't remember if it was NFL or college, but here's my question.
That really narrows it down?
Well, no, but the game is irrelevant.
Okay.
If this piece of paper here, if this is the end zone line, is the plane the second white?
No.
Part of the white,
first part.
Yeah. So the ball was they were debating whether it went over the second part of the white line, and I'm like, that's irrelevant.
Huh.
The second it goes over the first part is the plane, right?
I don't know. I don't know what they might have been referring to. But then again, you have some broadcast teams. But the thing is, in defense of the broadcast teams, Jake, sometimes I'm watching the game and I don't even know what the updated rules are. Like, it wasn't Blandino. Who was it that was in the booth? Statafor?
Well, whenever they go to the official booth expert, they're never right.
Whoever it was in the booth
said the NFL, the people on the broadcast, when they say, well, let's bring in our official replay expert, so-and-so in New York. Take a look at this play, and what do you think? Those people every single one of them, those people called Nevada on election night at 6 p.m., right?
Mike Carey was the worst of that. Remember how bad he was? Like, he was 100% wrong 100%
Correct.
of the time. But whoever it was in the booth yesterday, the Colts broadcast said, oh, yeah, and he gets he gets the third foot down and then makes a football move. And we just added that to the rule book. And I'm like, guys, you're adding stuff to the rule book like every year on what is a catch and what isn't a catch.
Have they
what are we
called Georgia
doing?
yet in the election? Whatever happened to Georgia?
Yeah,
a couple years ago that happened. What state was it that got left out a couple years ago? I think it was Nevada. A couple years, like in 2016, there was one state that was up in the air for 6 weeks later. They're like, oh, by the way.
I did watch a lot of the election coverage. I wouldn't call myself an expert, but from my understanding, there is one person in a remote cabin somewhere in Nevada that does all the vote counting, and he only does it on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
He's got weird hours,
and it's 4 hours a day. It's kind of like banker's hours.
I like it when they said the whole country's watching, and some guy comes out and he's and he looks like the guy that has the stapler from Office Space, and he comes out and says, We've decided, by the way, that the voters are going to take a break. They'll be back tomorrow about 10 a.m. We'll have another batch for you about 12:30. What?
Just ridiculous.
Okay. Nobody's paying attention to what's going on here. Take your time.
It is funny, though, how did you see the meme where Maryland was like a 4-touchdown underdog to Penn State? And after they beat Penn State, they put up key race alert. They tweeted it out, and it was the state of Pennsylvania with the Maryland flag over it.
Really?
Yeah, really, really funny.
Did you know a fun fact, Derek, that most people don't realize? Did you know that the Mason-Dixon line, you've always heard the phrase, right? When you cross the Mason-Dixon line, do you know what 2 states are separated by the Mason-Dixon line?
Maryland and Virginia?
No.
I don't know.
Maryland and Pennsylvania.
Really?
I think most people would say like Kentucky and Tennessee or Tennessee and Georgia.
Well, I knew the Mason-Dixon line was over in that area
it's
or
Pennsylvania
whatever,
and Maryland.
I did not know that.
Speaking of that, so let's talk about this because Maryland defeating Penn State, does that – and I want to make very clear here. I think Indiana's good. I watched the Indiana-Michigan game. Indiana has right now the quarterback that's probably, well, the second best quarterback in the Big Ten. Fields is clearly the best quarterback in the Big Ten, but – Indiana's got really good corners. I think their defensive backfield is really good.
Their wide receivers are great.
Their wide receivers
How
are
often
really
would
good.
you say that Indiana had a game against Michigan where their skill set players were better?
Correct.
Across the board.
You're right. They have very good receivers. They've got a quarterback that just has a zip on the ball and can extend plays. Indiana is good. But does Indiana, and even though they're ranked 10th, do you start to get pause? Because, number one, I was surprised how bad Michigan looked, quite frankly. Maybe Indiana's the one that made them look that bad. Michigan just looked discombobulated and out of sorts. And then with Penn State losing to Maryland, you think, what? Is the Penn State win is not as significant as we thought?
I think what you worry about, did Penn State quit? Because it sure looks like they quit.
If Penn State quit, I think it would be –
Maryland is – not good.
I think if Penn State quit, Derek, it would be because of the Indiana loss,
that's what I mean.
Not prior to the
Indiana loss. So should we even judge Penn State's rest of the season because after you go through the emotional letdown of a 2-point conversion loss where your brain fart caused that, really? I mean, they had that game won. All they had to do was basically stay in bounds and not score. And a crushing loss to Ohio State, which you had built up basically your whole season on. And then you go to Maryland and you're expecting to just roll out of bed and win, have you quit. So I'm not judging them on that. And the thing about Michigan, Jake, is you're right. Michigan doesn't look very good. Indiana was never threatened in that game. Never. They were up 24-7. Right. It never got within single digits. I mean,
and every time it looked like Michigan
severely outplayed them in that game.
Michigan shot themselves in the foot every time they got close, right?
They did.
By the way, we were talking about how maybe Penn State quit. You know what? Who doesn't quit?
Who's that?
Ambition. It never rests. Mm-hmm. Which is why WGU, folks, is the absolute place for you. And we talked about the fact that WGU has now been around since 2010. And in celebration of their 10 years, they are now offering $10,000 in scholarships. That's right, Indiana's accredited affordable online university, WGU Indiana. You can find out how you might be eligible for that scholarship. There's WGU right here. Indiana.wgu.edu/10x10, 10 by 10. But simply visit indiana.wgu.edu.
I think for IU, what you have to guard against is you've got this game at Michigan State coming up here in between the big showdown with Ohio State.
And Michigan State's one that – where is Michigan State exactly?
Yeah, I don't think they're very good either, but it's still a game that you have to be, focused on. Yeah, correct. Yeah, for sure. Because I don't think Indiana – I think Indiana's very good. I don't think they have the luxury of, Clemson can show up against Virginia and be fine. They can play a C game and still end up winning that game. But you can make an argument right now that Indiana, especially with Wisconsin's COVID situation, is not only the second best team in the Big Ten East, but the second best team in the Big Ten.
Well, I'll tell you, Derek, and it's unfortunate for Purdue what happened with Wisconsin. Now, obviously, health and safety of all people is priority here, so I'm not downplaying the severity of the state of Wisconsin's having massive issues with the coronavirus. I think I saw that they're up to a 33% positivity rate. And that extends into the University of Wisconsin's football program. That was, Purdue and Indiana both, Derek, for both of them, if there's a year where the path is going to be really laid out nicely for them to try to get into the Big Ten championship, for both of them, this appears to be the year.
Especially Purdue. Wisconsin, do you want to play every weekend? Yeah, you do. Keep up that consistency and those reps. Missing Wisconsin at the end of the day is a huge break for Purdue.
Right.
Because they're the best team in the Big Ten West. So Indiana, if they're to get to the Big Ten championship game, they'll have to have played Michigan, Penn State, Ohio State, and Wisconsin, 4 teams that Purdue doesn't have to play any of them. Say what you want about Penn State. Penn State has a far more talented roster than Minnesota or, a lot of these teams in the West.
Minnesota,
Iowa.
The boat's taking on water, right?
It is a little bit. And that's what's weird about the Big Ten is that the teams that we expected to be pretty good this year have gone backwards.
Correct.
And, I have no idea what the expectations were for Northwestern, but that's been a really nice story. And I think, Rutgers is competent at the very least. They've had a tough schedule here so far.
Did you say Rutgers?
No, I said Rutgers. They haven't earned the S yet, but they've at least been somewhat competent. They haven't embarrassed themselves.
They scored 27 points against Ohio State.
Yeah, it's not bad. Isn't it sad that Ohio State is that good where we praise a team? If you get near 4 touchdowns against Ohio State, even in garbage time, we're like, hey, pretty good.
Yeah.
But I don't think, to kind of set our expectations for Indiana, I don't think that they're going to beat Ohio State. I think Ohio State's on a different level than everybody else in the conference, and they've been on that way for a while. But it was crucially important, Jake, for Indiana to follow up last season with something like this.
Right.
And I think one thing that was missing from last season was that as good as Indiana was, and they should have beaten Tennessee and been a 9-4 team, they were 8-5, they went to a nice Gator Bowl, was that they beat all the teams they should beat. And this year, say what you want about Penn State crumbling and about Michigan. Are those teams great? No, but they still have talent up and down the roster. Superior talent to Maryland and Rutgers and all these teams at Nebraska that Indiana feasted on last year. So I think it legitimizes what happened last year.
Speaking of feasting, Saturday night, really the feast was the late night game, and it went well into Sunday morning. Clemson, Notre Dame. You want to talk about that next?
Yeah, let's do that.
All right. We'll talk about the battle of number 1, the battle of number 4, and the luck of the Irish, although it wasn't necessarily luck. I thought Notre Dame looked really good. We'll discuss that next as Query and Schultz rolls on here on the ISC Sports Network.
We're a different breed, aren't we? While others rest, we choose to work. Where others are content, we stay hungry. They may not see us coming, but we know exactly where we're going. You won't rest until you succeed. Neither will we.
At an Indiana dairy farm, long workdays stretch into more labor after sunset. A newborn calf needs watching, barn needs cleaning, tractor needs some handiwork for tomorrow's tasks. Just like in your own home, the day's chores are never done until the family beds down for the night. Dairy farmers and their families share the same dream with all of us, that what we all do is worthwhile. Bringing to market pure, safe, and healthy dairy foods is what they do, from Indiana's dairy families to ours every single day. Learn more at winnersdrinkmilk.com.
Because Brian saved 5 lives and started a movement.
Because Lester is a hero as a veteran and an organ donor.
Because Allie's legacy lives on.
Because I know how quickly it can be taken away.
I'm driven.
Driven.
I am driven to save lives.
I'm driven to save lives. Are you?
More than 4 million Hoosiers have teamed up with Indiana Donor Network to save lives. Sign up to become an organ donor at driven2savelives.org.
Welcome back to Query and Schultz. Our thanks. You just saw the messaging there from Ryan Newman and Indiana Donor Network. Again, a reminder that there is no age limit to sign up to become an organ donor. You can do so at driven2savelives.org. Fabulous organization. I myself am signed up to be a donor, and that is actually how my uncle Dwayne, managed to live another 20 years of life when he had a heart. He was a recipient of a heart donation back in 1985. driven2savelives.org, where you can sign up to become an organ donor. Speaking of driven, look, Notre Dame had a great drive late in the game. Derek, open disclaimer, I think everybody knows I am a Clemson fan. I was worried. Clemson had a situation late in their game in South Bend where they basically just, it almost looked like the game was over because they got to stop. They got the ball back. Credit to Notre Dame for stopping them. Travis Etienne, Clemson's fine running back who was kept completely in check by Notre Dame, had a play where he went out of bounds on third down. What are you doing? Stop the clock. Notre Dame gets the ball back. They go the length of the field. They score. They go into overtime, and then in double overtime get the win. I thought it was a fabulous game. I thought it was a great performance from two very good teams. Notre Dame's defensive line was spectacular. I thought the game really was kind of derailed by the officiating and the nonstop reviews in the last.
Yeah, it
couple
really
minutes.
hurt the viewing portion, the entertainment portion of it, because it was stop, start, which was annoying. I tweeted out right before that game-winning drive, or game-tying, I should say. They ended up, of course, winning the game in overtime drive from Ian Book. That, look, it's great that Ian Book can beat up, I'm paraphrasing here, and make plays against Pitt and Wake Forest, but I want to see him make a play to win a game like this. And that 55-yarder, which set up, really was the play of the game for the 91-yard touchdown drive, was, I think, the play that kind of cemented that for Ian Book. That was something that was missing in his resume. You know, he's won a lot. You know, Notre Dame, since that disastrous 2016 season, is 40-6. That's really, really good. I mean, is it Alabama? No, but nobody's on that level. But it's the tier right below that. 40-6. I don't care who you're beating. Is an excellent mark for a 4-year run. And Ian Book hasn't been the starter for all of that, but still, Notre Dame's been very successful, and a large majority of that has been because of Ian Book, but he has been the person kind of holding them back in those games against guys like DJ, who's an all-world recruit, Trevor Lawrence, any of the Georgia quarterbacks that they ended up facing. You know, it's been the thing that Notre Dame has been missing. So I was thrilled for Ian Book to put together that drive, and thrilled for Notre Dame. Clemson was shorthanded. Notre Dame caught a major break, not only having not having Lawrence, even though I thought DJ's numbers were as good as whatever Lawrence could put up, but they could focus on E10 that way, and they did to take him away.
The thing, you know, a lot will be made of the fact that Trevor Lawrence was not in that game, and to your point, DJ, and I believe it's Uli Ungalia.
Yeah, see, I wasn't even going to attempt.
I think that's right. We'll get used to saying it because he's going to be a very good player for Clemson moving forward, or wherever he plays. If he transfers, you know, you never know if Lawrence comes back, but Clemson was down probably their three best defenders.
Yeah,
in fairness, that actually to me was the bigger shorthand for Clemson.
No Tyler Davis, no Mike Jones. I think they were missing somebody for the first half with the targeting penalty as well. Who am I?
Yeah, Xavier Thomas.
Yeah, Xavier Thomas didn't play for the first half because he had the targeting penalty. So, yeah, look, they were playing shorthanded, but at the same time, and you know this, Jake, Clemson, Alabama, and Ohio State just recruit on a different level than everybody else. I mean, how many teams can have a QB2 that is how many teams in the country would DJ be starting for right now as a freshman? 90%?
All but 5?
Yeah, I was going to say. I mean, you know, he's a great player. So
he looked really good.
I just think, given the circumstances, given the fact that Clemson was shorthanded and Notre Dame was at home, and it's really the thing that Brian Kelly doesn't have in this era. He's returned Notre Dame to respectability, but he just hadn't had a signature win.
Well,
Notre Dame had to win that. Clemson didn't have to win that game. Notre Dame had to win that game.
I don't know, though, Derek. I think here's what was great about that game. It was fabulous entertainment. It was two very good teams. It was back and forth. There was a lot of drama to it. And, you know, you have the history of Notre Dame and the music playing. You know, I mean, even though it wasn't a sold-out crowd. Having said all of that, assuming that both teams hold serve, Clemson still has to go to Florida State. Notre Dame still has to play a plucky, I'll use that term, Boston College team, and I believe they have to go to North Carolina.
They have a disappointing North Carolina team who people thought was going to be really good and has just been kind of disappointing.
But assuming both hold serve, they're going to meet again because this year with COVID, the way it works, the ACC typically has two divisions, and the best team in each division, those two play each other in the ACC title game. Well, this year, Clemson was absorbed into the ACC schedule because of COVID, and it was, okay, the teams with the two best overall records are going to play in the ACC championship game. It's going to be Notre Dame and Clemson.
Yeah.
And the winner of that game, it kind of renders, even though it was a fabulous game, it kind of renders the November game meaningless because assuming that they meet again in the ACC title game, the winner's going to go to the playoffs, right?
Yeah, but I think it was more survivable for Clemson to lose that game than it would have been for Notre Dame.
But if Notre Dame, what I'm saying, Derek, is if Notre Dame had lost, I mean, this is all apples, or it's all a moot point now, but if Notre Dame had lost that game, Clemson goes on, they win either, you know, Travis Etienne stays in bounds, clock runs out, Clemson wins by a touchdown. If Notre Dame comes back in the ACC title game and defeats Clemson, Notre Dame's in.
Oh, I'm not disputing that they would have had a great chance. My point is that Notre Dame did not have a built-in excuse for losing that game. Notre Dame had the bullets in their gun. Clemson did not have – Clemson had an impressive gun. They didn't have all the bullets in their gun.
Right. That's fair.
And I think people naturally – the fact that it was a double overtime road loss, people are going to give them a break for that. And as they should. And you're right. The defense was playing shorthanded without all those players. I think at this point, Jake, if we're talking about the college football playoff now, we're taking kind of the wide view of this. There are 5 teams right now that control their own destiny. Notre Dame, Clemson, the 2 teams that we obviously, right? Alabama, Ohio State. And you know who I think the 5th team is now is Florida.
Yeah.
So if any of those teams win out, they are in.
But now, when does the Pac-12 start? They've started, right?
Yeah. Those teams and BYU and Cincinnati.
BYU and Cincinnati.
I forgot his name already, and I was supposed to put it in the notes, but we have a listener viewer that is a huge UC football fan. Is that his name?
Yes.
Okay, Chris. He wants to make sure that we mention Cincinnati.
I went to a movie with him. Good guy.
And I do want to mention Cincinnati, but I think that those teams are going to need a lot of help, a lot of losses in front of them in order.
BYU's interesting because BYU's another one. BYU and Cincinnati both. Look, if they go undefeated.
Yeah, the strength of schedule, particularly with BYU, it is tough. I mean, you're going to need some of these teams to lose twice.
Let me look who BYU's beaten here.
It's not been pretty, but then again, they're independent, aren't they?
BYU?
Yeah.
Well, they were in the WAC, right?
I think they were in the Mountain West.
For a while, but the WAC. They were in the WAC when Robbie Bosco was their quarterback. I'm trying to look up.
Here, I've got it right here. Here's BYU's schedule: Navy, Troy, Louisiana Tech, UTSA, Houston, Texas State, Western Kentucky, Boise, and they finish with North Alabama and San Diego State.
Yeah, that leaves a little to be desired.
I mean, you got a lot of directions and states in there. Way too many directions and states, I think, for BYU, but they're a great story for sure. And that quarterback of theirs is really impressive, and a guy that, the secret's kind of out about Zach Wilson, I think.
Well, that's always been BYU's MO, right? They've always had great quarterbacks.
Steve Young.
I mean, yeah.
Ty Detmer.
Like I said, Robbie Bosco. Wasn't that his name? I think it was Robbie Bosco. Look that up.
Jim McMahon, BYU.
Jim McMahon's a BYU guy, yeah. Yeah, they've had good players.
They had a guy like 15 years ago who I think the Dolphins might have drafted who actually wasn't good. John Beck. Do you remember that name?
No.
He was kind of like a Chad Henne sort of type.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe I'm just saying that because it's the Dolphins.
Rob Morris.
Yeah, Rob Morris. Rob Morris, who had a really nice career.
He did.
Unfortunately for Rob Morris, he was sandwiched around Dwight Freeney, Reggie Wayne, Edgerrin James, all these transcendent
He was a good player for the
Colts.
And the thing I liked about Rob Morris, was he kind of became a whooping boy for the Colts as their linebacker. And there were a lot of times where, I could think about the Monday Night Miracle game in Tampa where there was a big-time touchdown play, and Rob Morris was the only guy in the camera shot trying to run down I can't remember what receiver it was for Tampa. And so people were like, oh, Morris got toasted. Well, he actually was the only guy trying to make a play, and it was out of his zone, but he didn't give up on the play. But Rob Morris was a guy that would stand there and after games and answer every single question every time, win or lose.
I think the Colts just had some issues with the athletic ability of those linebackers and those defenses. Because remember, like Gilbert Gardner, there were some guys, and Morris was clearly a better player than Gilbert Gardner.
Who was the guy they took? Freddie was out of Arizona.
Keaho.
Freddie Keaho.
San Diego State, I think it was, or one of those. Yeah,
he kind of never panned out. Gilbert Gardner. They had a rough run of some third-round picks there.
Yeah, it was kind of a curse for them. Sweet Pea Burns.
Now he took his shirt off at Tiki Bob's, right? He got tased at Tiki Bob's and ripped his shirt off.
So many people have taken their shirt off and gotten tased at Tiki Bob's that it's really hard for me to
there was the one guy that they found passed out
them.
at 38th and Lafayette in the median. That wasn't John
Yeah,
Boyette. John Boyette, I think, also
during
ripped
training
his shirt.
camp.
Yeah.
And I think he might have wet himself. Sorry. I'm trying to – that's PG, right? That's not like a –
just the fact you said wet himself.
Well,
who says wet himself?
He wet his pants. Like when they came and they discovered him, they were like, "Hey, what happened to your khakis or jeans or whatever? Did you spill a coffee on you or?"
But he was in the median, right?
He was. Yeah.
Had he been at one of the entertainment clubs or?
I'm not sure. Yeah. We've all been
take a nap here at 38th and Lafayette in the median.
Yeah,
and hope nobody notices.
Maybe we haven't actually done that, but we've all been in a point in our life where we've had the 38th and Meridian falling into a pit, 38th and the median falling into the pit, and and with wet pants, with pee pants. Okay. We've all had that.
Okay.
We've all had lows in our life, Jake.
Yeah,
And that was
not that
whoever
low.
that fellas was him.
I
Or am I
can't
thinking of
remember.
Dom Rhodes?
No, Dom Rhodes. He was in the back of the police car, though.
Okay. So the Colts have had a couple of pee-pants incidents. Yeah.
Okay.
They have.
Okay. What are we doing next?
We've still got awards to give away.
And I'm sure our sponsors
Our
are
poor
thrilled to be on
sponsors.
board at this point.
Those poor sponsors. This is
Okay.
not what they signed up for. Our Winners Drink Milk Winner of the Week from the American Dairy Association Indiana. We have the Shops Biter Bull Bleep. And, of course, our friends Chris and John Love Heating and Cooling. Love That Play coming
excellent.
up as well.
Okay.
So
All
we'll
right.
get to all that as Query and Schultz continues here. We're going to take a deep breath and settle ourselves. ISC Sports Network.
You can't get enough of us. Good one, J-Man.
This is the worst scandal. This might
This
even
is
be
worse than steroid. Not so fast.
Are you going to watch the XFL?
I'll probably watch a little bit of it.
You want to go through and pick some games?
No, I don't. No, I don't. I really don't.
Oh my God! We are ripping fast today.
And how hard can it be, right?
These are now selling for about $3,500. So we're back to our old ways of pulling rocks.
Act like idiots on camera, open cards, and talk about the hobby.
Indiana dairy farmers provide us with safe, pure foods for our tables. A responsibility that takes intuition, resolve, and determination to make sure their milk is good for you and delicious to taste. Their connection with our community runs deep, passed down through the generations, ensuring that milk is always available at your store. It's not easy being a dairy farmer, but the rewards have special meaning when you can feed Indiana's families every single day. Learn more at winnersdrinkmilk.com.
We're a different breed, aren't we? While others rest, we choose to work. Where others are content, we stay hungry. They may not see us coming, but we know exactly where we're going. You won't rest until you succeed. Neither will we.
Welcome back to Query and Schultz here on ISC Sports Network. Jay Query and Derek Schultz. Time for our Love That Play for this week. Are you still laughing about what we were doing earlier? There needs to be some level of maturity on this show, Jay.
Okay. I'm completely fine.
Love HVAC.
I've never been more composed. I've got my glasses on to look sophisticated, and I've never been more mature.
353-2141, love-hvac.com to check out Love Heating and
100
Cooling.
years in business for Love Heating.
One
and Air.
hundo.
How about that?
Right here behind us. And Chris
You know,
and John have been longtime friends of Jake.
Did you take
and
any
mine.
business classes at IU?
No, thankfully. I don't think I qualified for any.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Kelly School of Business, no joke, right?
Yeah.
But, you know, one of the things that people talk about in business is with family-owned businesses, oftentimes a family-owned business, very rarely does it make it to the third generation. Love Heating and Air now in the fourth generation. And the reason you last that long, folks, great product, knowledge of product, customer service, integrity. And that's what you get at Love Heating and Air. Love-HVAC.com, 317-353-2141, the telephone number for Love Heating and Cooling.
My pick, and I think he could have picked a couple of plays, the Dalen Hayes sack in the second overtime, which really put Clemson in a 3rd and 26 or whatever. Yeah. I mean, that kind of effectively
the back-to-back
sacks with a knockout. But the second one, that's when you're like, oh my God, Notre Dame really is going to win this game, because I really thought that Notre Dame was going to have to go for two and get their defense off the field. But I thought really kind of to set the tone for the game, the whatever it was, mis-exchange or fumble, whatever ended up happening there, where Notre Dame was able to scoop it up and get it in the end zone, I thought really kind of set the tone for the rest of the first half. It really wasn't until the third quarter that Clemson, I think, took control of that game.
Yeah, I would agree from a Notre Dame standpoint. Look, the Travis Etienne's fumble that was scooped, to your point.
Was that what it was, or was it like a missed exchange? Or
It was a bad kind of pitch.
Okay.
That just bounced off ETN right into it goes the other way.
Yeah, Usukor Mara.
For my Love That Play, I'm just going to say in general, specifically without any one particular play. You know what? I take that back. How about the interception that Indiana got with a fantastic return to just kind of cement and silence the last push for Michigan? Look, I was, 1987, it doesn't seem like long ago to me, but it was. when Indiana last defeated Michigan. It's hard to believe it's been 33 years since Indiana had defeated Michigan. And, only, once in 59 years in Bloomington did Indiana defeat the Wolverines, and now twice. So there was so much. I do feel bad for diehard Indiana football fans. Bill Benner, who's been going to games for years and has sat through umpteen losses. Dan Byron, my buddy Mike Byron's dad, who has gone to IU games forever and sat through umpteen losses. It really does suck that those people are not able to be there to celebrate and embrace all of this. But Indiana now ranked in the top 10. Derek, again, I'm going to go ahead and admit where I was wrong when it comes to Tom Allen. I still get, I hate to nitpick here. There is part of me still that's like, okay, you're a top 10 team now. It's time to start acting like you thought you were going to win some of these games.
He's never going to relax.
But look, and by the way, for what it's worth, we should point out, this photo of Tom Allen actually is from last season, so that's why he is not wearing a mask there, so don't get on Tom Allen's case there. But kudos to Tom Allen because this team has bought into that spirit that he has. I mean, the excitement level that he has, the spirit he has, Indiana football has bought into it, no question about it, and you got to give him credit there.
Yeah, I don't care how good or bad Michigan is. Indiana had one win against them since 1967. Their first game against Michigan was in the year 1900. And Indiana going into that game in 2020, so 120 years, had 9 wins against Michigan. 9 in 120 years. So it's a big deal for Indiana to beat Michigan regardless of what the context of that victory is.
Yeah, congratulations to them because it was cool.
I really didn't know in my adult life if they would ever beat Michigan, honestly.
Really?
Yeah. Well, I said that about Penn State for a while, and then they broke through a couple of years ago against Penn State. But
I remember wondering when Penn State joined the Big Ten, which would happen first. Indiana would beat Penn State in football or Penn State would beat Indiana in basketball.
Yeah, well, we answered that question. But Penn State had some good games. They had a game early on when they joined the Big Ten. Was it 93? Where they played at that little, not the rack. They played at that little high school gym on campus.
It was right after Indiana was anointed as the number 1 team in the country. And they went into double overtime. Brian Evans hit a shot in double overtime to win it for Indiana. Greg Graham hit 2 of 3 free throws. To
send it into overtime, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Or it might have been.
What was that gym called?
Was it the Jordan?
No, the Jordan is their
Bryce
cavernous
Jordan Center?
That's their cavernous place where they get like 10
it was
people
Rec Hall.
per game. Rec Hall. Okay, yeah, I knew it was something like that. Where this little band.
I remember guys telling me that played for Indiana that gym was so small that when they would inbounds the basketball and out of bounds plays, students would reach down and try to pull the hairs out of their legs, which is rather disgusting.
Yikes. Yeah.
Like with your little shorts there. I'm not going to do that.
Did you see
though.
my calves?
Yeah,
Did we mention my calves already?
Yeah,
on the
we
show?
mentioned your calves.
Look good.
Okay. Yeah.
We still got our Winners Drink Milk Winner of the Week. We'll come back with that. Also, the Shop's Biter Bowl Bleep. And I'm sitting next to the biggest game show enthusiast that I know on a much more somber note. We lost Alex Trebek just the other day, so we will remember Alex Trebek before we wrap up as well. It's Query and Schultz. ISC Sports Network. Stick around.
Indiana Dairy Farm, long workdays stretch into more labor after sunset. A newborn calf needs watching, barn needs cleaning, tractor needs some handiwork for tomorrow's tasks. Just like in your own home, the day's chores are never done until the family beds down for the night. Dairy farmers and their families share the same dream with all of us, that what we all do is worthwhile. Bringing to market pure, safe, and healthy dairy foods is what they do, from Indiana's dairy families to ours every single day. Learn more at winnersdrinkmilk.com.
We're a different breed, aren't we? While others rest, we choose to work. Where others are content, we stay hungry. They may not see us coming, but we know exactly where we're going. You won't rest until you succeed. Neither will we.
The drive, the take, fouled, and it goes!
Lobbing it to the back of the end zone. They're going to say it's a touchdown.
Left foot gets through. Goal for Vargas. Hamilton will score.
Favorite time of the show, Derek?
That's right.
Chocolate milk.
You got to relax a little bit, though. We got to kind of get through it and pick our winners, and then you drink the milk. Like Takuma Sato didn't start chugging milk on lap 140.
Well, it's difficult to chug milk when you're going 220 miles an hour, right?
Well, but you don't want to prematurely celebrate. You have to wait until everything is counted. Like early on, your lead really isn't relevant. It's when everything ends up happening, when everything is counted, that's when you determine a winner. So I didn't know if that needed to be specified.
A can of worms right there now, aren't you?
Okay. See, we don't have the radio show anymore, so I feel like I have a little more leeway to do that maybe.
Really?
Okay. Considering who used to lead into our show.
The chocolate milk that I have right here, Derek, is basically the same as what I'm about to do here is eat 2 bushels of spinach and a couple of bananas.
Oh, yeah. Here, wait. Give me the fact sheet because I want to make sure that I get it all right. I got the chocolate milk facts right here. It really is amazing how nutritious it is. 1 8-ounce serving of low-fat chocolate milk, as much calcium as 10 cups. You're drinking 10 cups of raw spinach right now, my man.
I'm like Popeye.
What's the chicken place?
Okay.
As much potassium as a banana, as much vitamin A as 2 boiled eggs. That is a lot of recovery nutrition, especially if you're working out. The secret's been out for me for a long time. I actually had a buddy of mine tell me this 10 years ago. Hey, don't drink the whey protein and Gatorade after you work out. Drink chocolate milk because it's super nutritious. The chocolate boost of it with the sugar and everything else kind of gives you that lift post-workout. It's a great recovery fuel for your body and for your muscles. Chocolate milk is delicious 24/7, 365, but especially after a workout, it's my go-to.
My winner's drink milk winner of the week, Derek, I'm actually going to go with Ian Book because you talked about it earlier. Look, it's a difficult situation for anybody, the pressure that comes with being the quarterback at Notre Dame, more so than probably any college football program in America. And Notre Dame has been right there on the cusp recently under Brian Kelly, but never really gotten over that hump. You got the number 1 team in the country coming in. Yeah, Clemson might have been shorthanded, but nonetheless, Notre Dame had to routinely make plays. Ian Book goes over 300 yards through the air. He made plays on the ground when he needed to. He was poised when he needed to, and it was a huge win for Notre Dame. We'll see what happens in the ACC championship game, theoretically, in the rematch if both teams hold serve. We'll see if that happens. But I thought he was excellent when he needed to be. It broke my heart as a Clemson fan, but I'll give credit to Ian Book. He is my winner of the week.
It brings me, and I think I can say this now because you've been now not dead for 3 weeks. It brings me so much pleasure to think of you throwing your remote across the room and being all angry. I do feel bad because Shannon has to watch all of that unfold while you're spazzing out on Clemson.
I really wasn't for 2 reasons. Number one, I kind of knew going in it was going to be tough. Mm-hmm. And again, not necessarily because Trevor Lawrence was out, but because of the key pieces that Clemson was missing defensively. But I also felt like these 2 teams are the class of the ACC, and they're probably going to rematch in the ACC title game. So I'm like, it would have been a cool win to get, but you win the ACC title game in the rematch, and you're in.
Yeah, the only 2 things that really surprised me. One is how easily Notre Dame turned Travis Etienne into a non-factor.
Yeah.
And part of that is not having Lawrence, so they focused – Brian Kelly even said they focused everything in on him. But 2, how physical Notre Dame was. Because a lot of times they've been – especially
their D-line was really good.
That game 2 years ago, they got completely pushed around, offensively and defensively. And I thought they really held their own. And at times that D-line was too much for Clemson even to handle.
That game that Clemson and Notre Dame played 2 years ago, that Clemson won 30-3, there were 2 players, that were on the field for Clemson on Saturday that played in that game 2 years ago. And it's the 2 players who had turnovers for Clemson, Travis Etienne and Amari Rodgers.
Wow.
That's it.
Crazy.
Yep.
My drink milk winner of the week, I'm not sure how many people realize that this happened yesterday, but a champion in NASCAR was crowned. Yeah. And Chase Elliott is the youngest ever Cup champion. And good for him. 24 years old. He's a fan favorite who a lot of people like. And I think it's so important. Jake, NASCAR is never going to be what it was 20 years ago.
When his dad was racing.
Yeah. But it's so important with all of these stars like Jimmy Johnson, exiting, and Jeff Gordon, Tony Stewart are all gone now, for this new group of youngsters to become the face of the sport. And, no offense to Brad Keselowski, he's a great driver, and, you need guys like this that young fans can gravitate towards, and I think Chase Elliott is one of them. So congratulations to him. He was obviously emotional in victory lane. Really cool thing to carry on his dad's legacy, but also kind of cement himself as one of the faces of this sport moving forward.
1988, Derek. Somebody tweeted this yesterday. I thought it was interesting. 1988. The Lakers win the NBA title. The Dodgers win the Major League Baseball World Series. The number 9 car is champion in open wheel racing. And the NASCAR champion was a driver, number 9, named Elliott. Also in 1980, and all of those things, by the way, have now happened.
Yeah, of course.
Also in 1988, Notre Dame beat the number 1 team in the country at home en route to a national championship. Yeah. People are excited about that.
But the Kansas City Chiefs did not win the Super Bowl
That's correct.
In 1988.
That's right.
Maybe that streak breaks at some point here.
We'll
have to see. We got the Shops Biter Bull Bleep to get to. Also, Alex Trebek, sadly, passing away, a guy that was an icon. And really, let's face it, he was Jeopardy. And we're going to talk about that as well before we wrap up. It's Corey and Schultz, ISC Sports Network.
Dairy farmers provide us with safe, pure foods for our tables. A responsibility that takes intuition, resolve, and determination to make sure their milk is good for you and delicious to taste. Their connection with our community runs deep, passed down through the generations, ensuring that milk is always available at your store. It's not easy being a dairy farmer, but the rewards have special meaning when you can feed Indiana's families every single day. Learn more at winnersdrinkmilk.com.
We're a different breed, aren't we? While others rest, we choose to work. Where others are content, we stay hungry. They may not see us coming, but we know exactly where we're going. You won't rest until you succeed. Neither will we.
Your life is on the go. Now your viewing habits can be on the go. With the ISC Sports Network app, your team is at your fingertips. You can download years' worth of content from the ISC Sports Network library. High school, college, special events, weekly and monthly shows, wherever you find your favorite app. And you can always find out more information at iscsportsnetwork.com.
I'm Ryan Newman, and since I started with Indiana Donor Network and Driven to Save Lives, I found out that some people think that they can't be an organ donor. The truth is, anyone can sign up to be an organ donor.
Anyone?
Anyone?
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm sure. Anyone can sign up to be an organ donor. So don't count yourself out because somebody's counting on you. Go to driventosavelives.org and sign up today.
It's Query and Schultz, ISC Sports Network, alongside Jake Query in his new hoodie. I'm Derek Schultz.
Derek, not only is it...
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah. Not only is this from the shop, 920 Broad Ripple Avenue, the shop in Clay Terrace, theshopindy.com, but it pays tribute, you can't see it there, there we go, to the top 10 ranked Indiana Hoosiers. And what better thing to have for Buy It or Bull Schultz, and you can use the code word Tutties, which is a word Derek made up, but it works for a great code word.
Not true.
Look at that right there.
It's a word that I popularized.
In 1978 really season, I think Indiana decided to use this mascot for their football program, and so the shop now has this available as one of their hoodies. Wonderful.
They also had a dude like kind of the Nebraska Cornhusker guy, right? Hoosier Pride, was that his name?
He was like in the 60s, I think. I don't know that this fella had a name, did he?
I don't know. Was it Nick?
That's possible.
It's actually a serious question because Nick's English Hut.
Yeah, they kind
of use that bull logo, so yeah. I don't know. Somebody's going to know that answer. How about this? Indiana ranked 10th in football. The men's basketball poll just came out. Indiana unranked.
Really?
Wonder if that has ever happened before, where Indiana football has been ranked while the basketball team has not been.
I looked it up once. 69.
Well, actually, I guess
69.
Last year, the football team was ranked 25th, and did Indiana enter the rankings?
Now, has the football team ever been ranked in the top 10?
Yeah, see, 10th is the highest ranking they've ever had, so this is the first time they've ever been in the top 10. But real quick, Big Ten teams in the AP top 25. Iowa 5, Wisconsin 7, Illinois 8, Michigan State 13, Ohio State 23. How about Rutgers really coming back 24th? And Michigan 25. So no Indiana, no Purdue in the preseason top 25. Not that that's as much of a surprise, even though I think people view Indiana as kind of right there, a fringe top 25 team.
Bite or bull, Schultz?
Yeah,
you ready?
let's do it.
Okay.
You want to explain the rules, or you want me to?
No, you go ahead, Derek.
Okay, because I'm better at explaining them. I give a statement. Jake and I go back and forth whether we buy it or it's bull bleep.
Okay.
20% off by using the code word Tutties. Just
Okay.
wanted to mention that again. Statement number 1, Jake. Instead of waiting any longer, the Colts need to draft their future quarterback this spring. Buy it or bull bleep?
No, I think Phillip Rivers is going to be on. I'll say it's bull, Schultz. I think Phillip Rivers is going to get another year, and I think they're going to wait and see what they have in Jacob Eason.
They can't force it, right? If you like somebody, go get him. And it's going to be hard because I think the Colts are going to have a winning record this year. So it's really hard to move up in the draft when you're 9-7 or right around there. But I do think that if Rivers just kind of maintains this, he's been fine overall. People are very reactionary about Phillip Rivers. I think he's been about what I expected. If Rivers maintains this, I think the Colts will seriously look at trying to move on from him this offseason instead of kind of staying in this purgatory. So I'm actually going to buy it. And it seems like lately a lot of these young quarterback prospects are hitting, you know?
Yeah. Josh Allen, baby.
It's been impressive with what we've seen so far. Statement 2, the AFC Championship game will be the de facto Super Bowl. Buy it or bull bleep?
I'll say that's bull, Schultz, also, because you just never know. I mean, Derek, the Super Bowl, you're saying the Super Bowl champion will come out of the AFC. The NFC, Seattle, I realized, was defeated over the weekend, but, they're always legitimate.
I think Seattle's pumpkin's turning into a carriage a little bit. They won a lot of games by the skin of their – they're still really good, but they won a lot of games by the skin of their teeth early on.
Green Bay certainly is capable. New Orleans, if they're healthy, looks like they can be good. Look, it's one game, right? And in one game, anything can happen, so I'll say bull, Schultz.
I'm going to buy it. Kansas City is the class of the league. I think Pittsburgh and Baltimore are right there. And you just look at the rest of the AFC. I mean, it really even wouldn't be surprising to me if – let's say Buffalo made a run. Tennessee made a run to the AFC Championship game last year, and that's still a good team. Maybe not as good as we thought with that 5-0 start, but still a good football team. Whereas in the NFC, the Saints are 6-2, and I think you got to give Breeze – people are writing off Breeze, and I think you got to give him some credit for kind of maintaining through this. The Packers –
look good against Tampa.
Packers have something like a 50-point differential so far this year, so – you're right. Anything can happen in a one-game scenario, but I still think the champion comes out of the AFC.
Okay.
So I'm actually going to buy that. Final statement. Did we do this one last week? I think we had a variation of this last week, but now that they've played and the results has been decided, Notre Dame and Clemson will both be in the college football playoff. Buy it or bull bleep?
I'll say that's bull, Schultz. I think the winner of the ACC goes, and it was a great game in round 1 in South Bend, but I think assuming both hold serve, only one's going to go. It's going to be the winner of the ACC.
I think there is a scenario. Well, it would have to be Notre Dame losing the ACC championship game. Clemson with no ACC championship and 2 losses is not getting into the playoff. So in this hypothetical situation, Notre Dame would have to lose the rematch. But if Notre Dame lost the rematch, they would need a lot of help because you're assuming that Ohio State is an undefeated Big Ten champ. Maybe you hope that Alabama is an undefeated SEC champ. And, I don't know, Cincinnati or somebody, even though I think one loss Notre Dame with a win over Clemson would still be above Cincinnati and BYU, don't you?
Yeah.
Certainly BYU they would be in front of still.
It depends on how that loss comes, I guess, right? I
don't think the ACC championship game, if Notre Dame loses the ACC championship game, I don't think they're absolutely out, but
they've got to hold serve.
It's like
up
a 10%,
to that point, right?
It's like a 10% chance that they would still be in because you would need a lot of other stuff to happen.
I still think only one of the two will get. The ACC is not respected enough.
Yeah, it's a weird league because I don't think there are a lot of truly bad teams in the ACC.
Correct.
I just think there are a ton of mediocre ones.
There are 2 really good teams and then a lot of
like Pitt.
Boston College is okay. Pitt's okay. Yeah, Florida State's pretty bad. Wake is pretty bad.
Miami's pretty good. NC State.
Miami is good.
Is whatever, I guess. And NC State's whole existence has been being whatever.
Right.
NC State's like 7-5 every year, it feels like.
You know that the Colts have 2 NC State quarterbacks on their roster?
Yeah, isn't that weird?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you got Russell Wilson, NC State guy. That Mike Glennon was,
Mike Glennon.
There was a week where the NFL had 4 NC State quarterbacks starting at as starters.
Yeah, which is weird. I mean, what would the college hoops equivalent of NC State football be?
Illinois?
Ooh, that's a harsh on Illinois, don't you think?
Okay. So
I mean, Illinois has been to Final Fours.
Well, but NC State that's a good. Okay, the college basketball equivalent,
Minnesota,
Iowa.
Yeah, see, that's kind of where I was going more with
Iowa. Yeah, I mean, there's the Final Four in there.
80.
Yeah, correct. With Lute Olson.
Was that the only one?
87. They went to the regional finals and were leading UNLV, and it was like, oh my goodness, and they were ranked number 1 in 87. Matter of fact, the first team to score 100 points against Bob Knight, Indiana team, and that 87 team with B.J. Armstrong and Roy Marble and Jeff Moe, is a good team, got beat by Vegas in the 87 regional finals. Good program. George Raveling was the coach then.
Yeah. And then they've had some good players since then. That bald dude in like 06.
Bald dude.
Yeah. Remember that bald guy? Brian Brunner, was that his name?
Jess
Do you remember the bald dude? They lost to Northwestern State in the first round.
Chris Kingsbury?
They won the Big Ten. They had the kid from that little town in Indiana, Brody Boyd.
Yeah.
Duggar. Was that where he's from? Yeah. Who's a prolific high school scorer.
Yeah.
So they've had, Luke Recker transferred there.
Joel Lehman, Sagamore the Wabash recipient. Great guy, longtime coach at Pike High School, Duggar guy.
Do we break before remembering Alex Trebek? Or is this the last one? Okay, this is the last one. I wanted to fit in. Sorry to do that on the air. I was trying to remember if we still had one more break.
No, this is Final Jeopardy.
I was used to controlling the board, so this is different for me. This is nice, where I could just kind of sit back and relax. Mm-hmm. Sad to see Alex Trebek succumb to pancreatic cancer, which unfortunately he held on for a long time, but unfortunately usually only has one result.
Well, Derek, Alex Trebek is interesting because when you really think about beloved figures in American television of the last 25, 30 years, a lot of them are Canadian, Alex Trebek included. He became an American citizen in 1998. All of that is irrelevant to his legacy within being, a very popular host. But I think it was just his humility. I know there was always the running gag that, he had the answers and, he was arrogant but he seemed like just such a down-to-earth, nice guy that was genuinely interested in the little factoids of the different contestants on Jeopardy. Look, I'm sure when Art Fleming stepped aside in 1979 after 15 years, not consecutively, but 15 total years as the host of Jeopardy, that people thought there'd never be another Art Fleming. And Alex Trebek himself had said there will certainly be another great host of Jeopardy because the show will indeed go on. But he will definitely be missed. There were a lot of people that felt like, a lot of people had dinner with Alex Trebek, Derek, over the last 25 years or so. It'll be interesting to see who replaces him. Ken Jennings has been rumored.
Yeah, and it sounds like Trebek is a terrific guy.
Correct.
Ken Jennings is not my favorite. He comes off as very smarmy to me.
I don't disagree, but he's on a new show on the Game Show Network.
Oh, he is? Okay.
And he's actually
You're like the one person that watches Game Show Network.
I love the Game Show Network. He's actually pretty likable on it.
Really?
Yeah. Jeopardy James guy is the one that was kind of the cool dude at first, and he's kind of a weird dude.
See, I love Jeopardy James.
Yeah, he seems weird.
Ken Jennings is just kind of smarmy to me.
Well,
but I think you're going to like different people that I'm going to like because you like people that more kind of fit your personality. Smart
personality.
A little bit smart. I mean, I'm glad. Like I said, I'm glad that you didn't die a couple weeks ago. Yeah. But a little bit smarmy.
Okay.
I just think it's going to be difficult for them because he was that show. And Price is Right. People say, well, Bob Barker. Yeah, the skinny microphone and all of that, but there were so many other elements of Price is Right that kind of brought you in besides Bob Barker. I think the main draw for Jeopardy clearly was Trebek.
Yeah, he was great. He was great.
No question. Iconic.
Yeah.
And I loved when he got after people for the sports answers.
Yeah, he would get very frustrated.
Because some of them, the Super Bowl determines the champion of this sport, and then it's just blank.
I saw once where it was this Chicago Bull was the most valuable player in all 6 of the Bulls NBA, and they didn't know it. Yeah. I'm like, my goodness.
Why isn't sports more important to you guys out there? It's so important what we talk about on this show every single day.
Mm-hmm.
Every single week, I should say. Thanks to all of our sponsors. Thanks to the crew here at ISC Sports Network. We will be back with more next week.
Indiana Donors Network.
Colts, Titans.
St. Elmo.
Thursday night
WGU,
football.
Indiana. Love eating in there.
More college football to get to next week. And all of the segments that you've come to know and love.
American Dairy Association. Winners drink milk.
We will see you later, guys. Take care. Bye.
We're a different breed, aren't we? While others rest, we choose to work. Where others are content, we stay hungry. They may not see us coming, but we know exactly where we're going. You won't rest until you succeed. Neither will we.